Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at this media conference organized by the Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine here in Bridgetown, Barbados. Those of you who are joining us online, we welcome you and we look forward to you participating in this media conference. With any questions, you can post it here on the chat and we'll try to answer those. Welcome to the media that is here from Barbados in person. We thank you for coming to this arranged press media conference on this very important and major issue that we have been grappling with for over 2 years, almost 2 years now, as it relates to Gaza. On my right is Lalu Hanuman. He is the Secretary of the Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine and one of the founding members of our organization, which was started over 10 years ago. On my further right is Tahira Mandra. She is also a member of Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine, one of our strong members among our ladies in the group. On my left, I have David Denny. He is from the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration, and the name on the application that we will speak to in the Court of Barbados, his name is there. So we thank you all for joining us. We will start with Lalu, who will speak to what we are here for today. Especially, it is unprecedented in Barbados and the Caribbean what we are doing, and we want everyone's attention on this matter because it's a matter of critical importance to humanity as a whole. So I welcome Lalu and I turn over to him to speak to the matter at hand that we are here for.
Greetings, everyone. As we would say in Barbados, good afternoon. Oh, I'm off the screen here. Greetings, family. That is a traditional Barbadian greeting. So we are here today because Mr. David Denny, in his capacity as General Secretary of the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration, has filed some documents in court asking for certain declarations from the court. I'll just quickly run through the declarations. There are a number of declarations that he is requesting. The first declaration is that Israel has committed genocide in Gaza. The second declaration he's asking for is that Israel has committed war crimes in Gaza. The third declaration is that Israel has committed crimes against humanity in Gaza. The fourth declaration is that Israel is an apartheid state. And then the fifth declaration is that the Director of Public Prosecutions must bring charges against anyone in Barbados, visitor or resident alike, who has been involved in either one or all of the following: genocide in Gaza, war crimes in Gaza, crimes against humanity in Gaza. And then there's a further declaration, a sixth declaration that he's asking for. He says that in the event that the Director of Public Prosecutions is unable to bring charges, that the Immigration Department, through the relevant procedures, must immediately deport any visitor with links to the genocide and or war crimes and or crimes against humanity in Gaza, regardless of diplomatic status. That was put in because obviously somebody with diplomatic status cannot be the subject of a charge in Barbados. Obviously, we've been hearing about IDF soldiers going all over the world, and there's a Belgium-based group that's currently bringing charges against various IDF soldiers in different parts of the world, including their visits to Argentina, Brazil, Peru, and elsewhere. And so we are asking that the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions in Barbados, does likewise. Should an IDF soldier come to Barbados who has been involved in the Gaza genocide in whatever capacity, that the charges should be brought against them. But also, I understand that there is somebody in Barbados, and I'm not going to give any further details now, who actually served in the IDF and also is implicated in these war crimes. So I'm saying that that person also ought to be charged with either genocide or war crimes or crimes against humanity. This is the first time that such an action, as the moderator has pointed out, Mr. Suleiman, has taken place in Barbados. Such a claim has been brought, and indeed in the Caribbean, and indeed in most of the world. I mean, there have been allegations of genocide in different places in Bosnia and so on in the past, but that tended to be true United Nations tribunals. However, under the Genocide Convention, it actually allows for what's called universal jurisdiction, because the Genocide Convention, which came into force in the 1950s, at that time there was no international criminal court. So the jurisdiction for actually prosecuting people involved in genocide resided in the states that had signed up to the Genocide Convention, and Barbados is one of those states that signed up. From recollection, I believe it was around about 1980 or thereabouts that Barbados actually signed the convention. So I'm saying that in that context, Barbados has a duty, and a failing to do so, in effect, makes us complicit. Whatever the outcome of this case might be, if we succeed or not, at least we've tried, and it's important to try. To do nothing is not an option. We have to do something. There's a genocide going on, and if we do nothing, in effect, we're complicit in it. So if the media has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Lalo, for that introduction into this application to the court. As you said, to do nothing is not an option, and that is very important. We are looking at all possibilities here, what we can do from our tiny island of Barbados, and as you said, it is recognized that a genocide is going on. Our Prime Minister called it a genocide, so we are on safe ground to say that we are calling this a genocide and asking for the courts to recognize. But we'll give way to David Denny from the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration to say a few words as to his role in this application to the court here in Barbados. David?
Thank you, my brother, for your introduction. I am very happy to be here this afternoon with the Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine, because both of these organizations in Barbados have taken a very bold step, and we are prepared to defend the people of Palestine. And this case for us is going to become a very important case for us, not only in the Caribbean or the Americas, but in the world. Because what we are defending people in Palestine whose children are suffering every day, where you have people in hospitals are suffering every day. People are denied the rights to receive aid every day, all because of the action of Israel, an action that is backed by the United States of America. So for us, this case is a very, very important case that we are bringing before the courts of Barbados. So it means that Barbados is playing a very, very important role in this struggle in relation to solidarity with the Palestinian people. Very important role. Because we are not just representing our organizations in Barbados, but this is a bold step for us in the Caribbean region. And many of our comrades and friends in the Caribbean region are thinking about organizing similar actions in their own individual countries. So this is, for us, is a very bold step, and a step that can help to create and strengthen our solidarity action with the Palestinian people. I think that the time has come for the world to take a very strong position against all of those functionaries in Palestine who are today murdering the children of Palestine. Because you know that the military forces from Israel are based also in some sections of Palestine and denying the Palestinian people even the right to go to their own space or land or property. And if they do go, to even collect aid, in some cases they are murdered, killed. So, as Brother Lalu mentioned, this is a very strong case against the government of Israel. This is also a very strong case that can also help to create an understanding and some level of consciousness so our people will better understand what is happening to the Palestinian people. So this case is going to do a lot of work. It's not only a battle in the court, but it's also an educational tool for our people to better understand the conditions in terms of what is happening to the Palestinian people and how our people in Palestine are suffering. And I want to end by repeating a call, because every time I watch the international news on television on mornings, it pains me. And I have a lot of respect for the government of Barbados. And I want to repeat a call. I want to call again on the government of Barbados, now that we have filed this case in the courts of Barbados, to give up all forms of diplomatic relationship with Israel. I want to repeat that again. I want to call on this peace-loving government, because I have respect for the government of Barbados. I want to call on them to give up all forms of diplomatic relationships with Israel, so that we in Barbados, as peace-loving people, can join with nations like Belize, like Cuba, like Venezuela, and all of the other countries in the world that have given up all forms of diplomatic relationships with Israel because of its action against the people of Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And we will open up the floor for questions. And just to repeat that on this point here, members of the media here in Barbados, we are joined by persons from across the world on our Zoom. There is an interest in this case, a very strong interest in this case to see how it goes. And we are already, as David said, getting indications that they want to pursue similar in other Caribbean territories. So we'll open up to questions. If you have any questions here, we will go with the media here first. And then if there's any questions from the persons online, we can engage online as well. But please, go ahead. So the question is, when was the motion filed?
I will allow Lalu, the attorney at law that is managing this process, answer that question, because he would have done all that.
The documentation was filed yesterday on the Curious system. The Curious system, as you know, in Barbados, we've got a virtual filing system here now, and it's called the Curious system. But the Curious system quite often malfunctions, and it was malfunctioning yesterday. So it's partly filed, not fully filed, but it will be filed by Monday fully. I need to go in and speak to the clerk to get that dealt with. But the documentation has been put on the Curious system since yesterday.
After it's being filed, is it possible to know any type of timeline for
If a timeline. Okay, I've also filed what's called a certificate of urgency, which calls for an urgent hearing of the matter. It's a standard procedure if something is considered to be urgent. And then that documentation is passed to what's called the duty judge. Every week there's a different judge who's allocated the title of a duty judge who deals with urgent applications. And if that duty judge deems it urgent, in effect, there'll be a hearing within a week or thereabouts. If the duty judge deems it not urgent, then he will allocate it to a list system, but it'll still be heard fairly expeditiously. I don't know who the duty judge is for next week, so or this week for that matter, so I can't say before whom it will be placed.
How long are you going to wait for that in case you don't hear anything?
How long will I have to? Well,
How long are you willing to wait? If you don't hear anything this week, a month pass.
Well, I will chase it up. Most certainly, I will contact the registrar of the court to ensure action is taken. It's an urgent application, so it needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be granted a hearing.
Are you giving them a timeline? Will the court anything to hear this thing on your behalf?
The timeline is the court's timeline, but as I said, because it's an urgent application, the standard procedure is whoever the duty judge is, the documentation is sent to that duty judge, and they make a determination as to the urgency and how soon it should be listed. So that's the standard procedure. But if I don't hear back in the next few days, I will certainly chase it up via the registrar.
I have a question here.
Yeah, I have a question. David, you mentioned about the call on the government to break all diplomatic relationships with Israel. Has there been any call from other political parties in Barbados along those lines? And is it possible to maybe have a joint statement by all the political parties in Barbados that the country at least should break diplomatic relations with all forms of diplomatic relationships with Israel because of the ongoing genocide?
From the beginning of this struggle, we in the Caribbean Move for Peace and Integration have been making this call. We haven't received any response from the Government of Barbados or the opposition party or any of the political parties in Barbados on this issue. But what I can say is that I also participated in the demonstration outside of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which was organized by Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine. And at that demonstration, we made the call for diplomatic relationship between Barbados and Palestine, and that has happened. And I think that can say that at least the government of Barbados has started somewhere, but because of the level of genocide and because of what is happening to the Palestinian people, we are demanding urgent action by the government of Barbados because we feel insulted. Because if you maintain diplomatic relationship with Israel, it means that you're giving them some kind of comfort and you're endorsing some of the action that the government of Israel is doing to the people of Palestine. So for you as a government to break that kind of connection because of what is happening, I think you have to give up all forms of diplomatic relationship with the government of Palestine. I mean Israel, government of Israel.
I will respond as well. Yes, in January of 2024, which is a year and a half ago, this organization that I'm the secretary of, the Caribbean Against Apartheid in Palestine, we actually wrote a letter to the CARICOM Secretary General asking that all CARICOM countries, that it should become the policy of CARICOM, that all CARICOM countries should immediately either suspend or better yet break diplomatic relations with Israel. As I said, this is a year and a half ago that letter was sent, and I know it was delivered. And up to now, we haven't even had an acknowledgement. Further to which, there's a group called the Caribbean Collective, and they circulated a petition throughout the whole Caribbean, from the Dutch Antilles right the way up to the Virgin Islands, everywhere, Jamaica and everywhere. And they collected 1,500 approximately signatures on this petition calling for the breaking of diplomatic relations, the severing of diplomatic relations with Israel. And this was 6 months ago when Prime Minister Mia Motley was appointed to the chairmanship or the chairpersonship of CARICOM. And I was asked to deliver that hard copy when it was printed. It was a virtual document, but it was printed to Ms. Motley's office here in Bridgetown, which I did with a cover letter, and up to today I haven't even had an acknowledgement. So we've been asking for this. In fact, our organization as well, and David Denny also participated, we organized a picket outside the Israeli consulate here in Barbados. There's a consulate in Barbados near to Harbour Road, and we organized a picket outside there calling for that. But in the days of apartheid South Africa, obviously we were in the vanguard of the struggle against apartheid, but for whatever reason, we're not in the vanguard for the struggle against apartheid in Palestine. We still maintain diplomatic relations, we still maintain trading links, we still maintain sporting links. All of those things we refuse to have with apartheid South Africa. And it's important to remember that the late President Mandela said that the apartheid that exists in Palestine is much worse than what he endured in South Africa. And if he says that, who can challenge that? In fact, in the application of urgency, I've actually mentioned here that we want CARICOM to discuss this matter, to discuss Gaza at their forthcoming heads conference in Montego Bay, which is on the 6th to the 8th of July this year. Because I had a look at the official agenda, and Gaza is not on the official agenda, which is disgraceful. So as part of our push for that to happen, this court case is one of the, hopefully one of the instigators.
Any further questions? Any questions from anyone online? You can post here. Just to make the point and to reiterate that we are doing this so that we continue to bring attention to what is happening in Gaza and in the wider Palestinian territories. This is unconscionable in the 21st century that we can have a so-called state, which is an occupying state, by the way, can do to people what they are doing to the people of Gaza. They have broken every international law possible without any thing happening to them. And so we are very concerned about this. This court application is another step in what we hope that will bring about, first of all, awareness, but also bring about some action. A question to Lalu. What are the outcomes if the court rules in our favor? What happens next?
Well, obviously that's a big if. But at the very least, I would hope that we would succeed with the declaration that the DPP should bring charges against anybody, either resident or visiting Barbados as a tourist or as a whatever capacity, obviously not a diplomatic person because they have immunity, against them for genocide who have been implicated in this genocide or in war crimes or in crimes against humanity. So I would hope at least that declaration succeeds. But if we succeed with them all or some of them, then it would mean that it would be difficult for at least the Barbadian government to maintain diplomatic relations with Israel, because it would mean a Barbadian court has ruled that there's genocide there. It would mean a Barbadian court has ruled that there's crimes against humanity being committed by Israel. It would mean that the Barbadian court has ruled that war crimes are being committed by Israel, and would also mean that a Barbadian court has ruled that Israel is an apartheid state. And I cannot see how the Barbadian government can justify continuing diplomatic relations or trade links or sporting links in the context of such a ruling of a Barbadian court. And I would hope it would also have ramifications beyond Barbados in other CARICOM countries and possibly globally as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
The group has been operating since the beginning. How has wider Barbadian partners been
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people in Barbados see Israel through a religious lens. There are lots of what's known as Zionist Christians or Christian Zionists in Barbados, and they think Israel, because of the name, is some sort of a religious entity that's mentioned in the Bible. So they're quite confused by it. I think the name Israel was deliberately chosen because at that time when Israel was created, they were discussing various names to give to this a state that was coming into being, this nascent state. And at one time they were thinking of calling it Samaria, another time they were thinking of calling it Judea, and then they settled on Israel because of their religious implications, because knowing that there's lots of these Christian Zionists globally, they knew it would have a resonance, and it worked. In the 1950s and the late 40s, in America, a lot of Christian Zionists came on board with that concept in mind. And I think, unfortunately, in the context of Barbados, the name Israel, because it's in the Bible, it confuses people. So we're hoping, again, this is another achievement we're hoping to get to with this court case, that it will raise awareness, raise consciousness, and draw linkages with what happened in South Africa in terms of apartheid as well. And you might ask, why are we talking about Israel? Why aren't we talking about the Sudan? This is what the Zionists say. Why are we only focused on Israel? Well, we're focused on Israel from a number of reasons. To start with, Israel was the baby of the United Nations. The United Nations created Israel with the partition resolution of 1947. So Israel needs to be held to the highest standards. At present, it's breaching the UN Charter, it's breaching the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, it's breaching the Geneva Conventions, it's breaching the Genocide Convention. And it's important that it's held to account. That's the first thing. Secondly, the second thing is the global complicity. What's happening in the Sudan or happening in Haiti or wherever else, whatever issue you might care to choose, is a regional or local issue with one or two metropolitan countries involved. But what's happening in Israel is global complicity. Global complicity through the United Nations, global complicity through the diplomatic relations by the European Union, etc., and also, of course, the military supplies. Just this morning on the BBC World Service, there were two mentions of what's happening in Gaza today. It mentioned that military aircraft bombed people in a food queue. It wasn't, I mean, previous to today, they were shooting people. They had drones. The drones they're using actually have guns on board. I mean, it's amazing to imagine what people can think of in terms of weapons. So they have guns on board drones, and the drones are doing the firing, and the drones are computer controlled. But today, a military aircraft, an Israeli military aircraft, actually dropped bombs on people in a food queue and killed 25 people. I mean, it's unprecedented. And then on top of that, UNICEF also today issued a statement saying that Gaza is running out of water supplies because they get their water through desalination plants. And because no fuel has been allowed in now for 100 days, the desalination plants don't have fuel to operate their generators. So they're shutting down. So people not only don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have medication. And it's important in the context of Barbados, and I hope the Barbadian media would pay heed to this, that Gaza is smaller in geographical terms than Barbados. Barbados is 166 square miles. Gaza is 180 square miles. And it has 2.5 million people. So you can imagine how crowded it is. On a per capita, per square mile basis, they're the most densely populated place in the world. More than Hong Kong, more than Mexico City, in effect. And on top of that, they've had the equivalent of 2 atomic bombs dropped on them, if you take into consideration the total ordnance dropped there over the last 20 months. 2 atomic bombs. Imagine if all of that had happened to Barbados, and on top of that, no food, no water, no medication, no fuel has been allowed in for 100 days. How would the average Barbadian be feeling in that context? And when you queue up for the pittance of food that you're now getting, you're getting bombed, you're getting shot. So I would like the Barbadians to draw an analogy in terms of that reality.
That says that they will also be seeking to pursue similarly with their courts there. They'll be keeping an eye on our situation here and hoping to move in that country as well. So thank you for that comment from Trinidad and Tobago. If there are no more questions from the media, we can do a little wrap up. David, can you want to say a few words to wrap up?
Yeah.
And then I'll ask Tahira to say a few words as well.
Well, I would like to say thanks to the Barbadian people who have already expressed their solidarity with us in relation to this case. Thanks to the people of the Caribbean who have already expressed their solidarity internationally. There are a number of organizations internationally that have expressed their solidarity with us and are willing to give us whatever support so that we will be successful in the courts of Barbados. And I think that is very, very, very important to receive the solidarity statements from all of those organizations around the world, regionally and locally. This is a very important struggle, and I am hoping that this struggle will help to create some level of consciousness in Barbados so that the people of Barbados will fully understand what is happening in Gaza, and by understanding, the people of Barbados will be able to come closer so that they can properly and honestly express their solidarity with the children and people of Palestine. And finally, I would like to also say that the Caribbean movement continued to work on a solidarity scholarship for someone from Palestine, and we are in discussions with our counterparts in Venezuela to try to make this a reality so that we can bring someone to Barbados in September from Palestine to study right here in Barbados. Thank you.
Thank you. Tahira?
Good afternoon, all. Firstly, I want to thank you all for coming out. This was a very necessary step. You've come to all our rallies, all our protests. You have come to our marches, and you've seen that, this is a cause that's worth fighting for. It's the most televised genocide. It's all on social media. So, this is very necessary what we're doing. We want your support. We want you to cover it from a humanitarian perspective, from a global perspective. Our government, she fights for climate and, climate change. And you should know that all these bombs and everything are going into the atmosphere, and they're going to affect us. So we need to look at that as a very, disturbing issue as well. I want to thank you all for coming out once again and for covering this with us. And thank you. I think everybody has said enough. Yeah.
Thank you, Tahira. Thank you. Thank you, media, for joining us. We look forward to your coverage. Thank you for those online who have joined us. And we had a comment from the Trimboganians for Palestine. They said they have dropped an equivalent of roughly 7 Hiroshima-sized bombs on tiny Gaza Strip. So yes, so we know what's happening. We are aware. We see it daily, as Tahira said, in our media, on our TVs, in our social media. We have to act. Silence is not an option. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you. And also there are copies of